Good afternoon, councillors, staff, members of the public. Welcome along to this briefing session. Declarations of interest. Councillor Steck declares a financial interest with respect to item 10.41 as the partner owns the property. Are there any further declarations of interest? Thank you. (10.11). Any questions? Thank you. 10.21. A question, page 20, equipment lease or hire expense. Just a question I've just asked Mr. Ranson. He's ready to answer this, just to explain what property that lot 757 Ocean Drive is and whether or not we can pass it on to the lessee. Through you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That property is the Back Beach property that we lease out. And we've been advised by the manager, acting manager, major properties and major projects and property that although that cost has increased us, we're unable to pass that cost to the lessee until the next lease review.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Smith. It's the Back Beach Cafe. It's jointly operated, and the lease is with this, between the state government and the city. Further questions on that particular item? 10.22. Any questions regarding the schedule of accounts for payment or paid? 10.23. I'm happy to take questions on this. We are dealing with that tonight at a special council meeting. Any questions?
My question is just about the inclusion in here of having a look at reduction in councillor numbers again, and through you to the CEO. I thought we're dealing with the matter of resignation, and I'm a little bit curious as to why we've decided to put that back in there for consideration. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the reasoning behind that.
Thank you, CEO.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my experience has been any time a vacancy has been created in any council I've been associated with, where they've had wards and they have had a progressive review of the representation across wards. There's a scheme in place where you do that every 7 years. Where there are no wards, when a vacancy becomes apparent, it is quite often logical to then just test with the community and the local government about the number of elected members representing their community.
Further questions? Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Steck. We're up to 10.41. Any questions? Councillor Kelly.
Just on page 32, where reference to advice notes, I just want to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, if the staff can advise us, so it's quite open, as to the strength of advice notes, what they mean. Are they actionable? Do they stack up?
Thank you. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, advice notes normally are applied outside of the pure conditions, so they are simply bringing to an applicant's attention that other aspects of either local laws or council policy might be in place, which are not necessarily appealable, but there's an expectation that the applicant is aware of those and follows either the local law or the council policy in relation to those advice notes.
Further questions?
Yeah. Can I just follow up? So what you're saying is an advice note points to a statutory position.
Through Mr. Mayor, either a statutory position under a local law or a policy position of the council.
Further questions? I have one with respect to the, seems to be only one matter which is still debatable, and that's the footpath or the dual use pathway. If council relies simply on replacing any damaged dual use pathway in front of this property, the performance bond or the deposit, footpath deposit would cover that cost, and if there's any additional damage, can we then pursue the property owner for the additional costs if there are any?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Where a bond is applied, and our terminology is for infrastructure within the road reserve, that might include curbing, it might include footpaths, street trees, reticulation or city-controlled vegetation. The bond is applied for a development. We would ordinarily do an inspection prior to the site construction commencing, and if there is any damage to any of that infrastructure, we would seek to recover the costs of replacing the infrastructure like with like at the close of that. So there's a distinction between the bond and infrastructure versus, I guess, the condition that has been considered to date, and that is a cash contribution towards upgrading that particular footpath.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Thanks very much. Can we invite Councillor Steck to rejoin us, please? (10.4.2). Are there any questions regarding that management plan? Okay, I'll declare the briefing session closed, and we will have a slight recess before we start the special council meeting at 6 p.m. Speaker against, Councillor Kelly.
Please, Mr Mayor, sorry.
Beg your pardon?
Ask a question?
You may ask the question and I'll revert to Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. When that particular extraordinary election happened, do you know who the councillor was?
No.
It was my husband, and he was an exceptional councillor. Thank you.
Councillor McCleary, I'll just let that go. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, the first thing I'd like to do is introduce a little bit of debate into this rather than just points of view. The first thing I'll refute is that we are not Busselton, and we never will be Busselton. Busselton can do their own thing, they do it very well, and I thank them for doing that. The second thing is that if we don't have an election to June, the positive is that it gives somebody else in our community 14 months to come into this chamber and do good things. As for the less than 2% or 3% or 4% of voters who will turn out, well, what a challenge. A challenge incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we get out there and get people in to vote. That's part of being in a democracy, is that you support the people who are in your community and say to them, come on, let's have a crack. If we give in on a small percentage, then we're not fighting for much. As for the cost, $10,000 to $15,000, I think that's already been covered in a $70 million budget by Councillor McGuinness. But there's an important factor here. The resignation of Councillor McGuinness creates the opportunity and offers the privilege for another of Bunbury's citizens to serve, to provide service to the community as an elected member of the Bunbury City Council. That can never, ever be underestimated. Local government matters, and every person who is elected to serve is an investment in the community. One position, big investment, and they bring new and diverse skills to add value to the municipal structure. That's the important thing. This is about service to the community and us offering the opportunity and the honour to serve. Diversity is the great strength of local government, we know that, and the filling of the vacancy will maintain the principle that every individual can contribute something unique to their community through service. We in this chamber have the opportunity to offer that to somebody out there, and there's a great many skilled people who would come into this chamber and offer something. The attributes of individuals to deliver a diversity of views, ideas and activities while planning for the future is therefore the most important consideration. We're offering an opportunity to serve. The representation provided by a vibrant council touches almost all areas of the day-to-day life of the community of Bunbury. As such, it's important that the city keeps a full team of elected members in place to contribute to the wide-ranging array of local needs, and that's by maximising diversity. This opportunity for us to offer somebody out there, and we know there's a lineup of people who will put their hand up, this is an opportunity for us to put our faith in the fact that we have ability out there who would come in here and serve the people of Bunbury. It is about service. People will turn out. It'll be up to us. You cannot put a price on democracy, 10 or 15,000. I don't want to go into getting the Electoral Commission down here, but I strongly recommend that you vote against the executive recommendation, and hopefully somebody will move option 3 and we'll support it. Thank you.
Speaker 4. Councillor Morris.
The irony of talking about democracy. Well, we're sitting in a chamber in which, if we decide to have an extraordinary election in the House and having 3% people voting, let's take a look. Let's have 8 or 9 people actually running in this election. You could have a person sitting here representing the constituents of Bunbury with 100 votes or less. 100 votes or less. A person belongs to an organization, a footy club, has a one-issue stance about something that gets people riled up. And you get 100 people coming through, that person could be sitting here representing effectively 100 people for them to sit here and have a voice within the council. When we talk about the irony, this group sitting here rejected democracy in relation to a plebiscite that we held, where the majority voted in favor of lowering the number. This motion is just simply reflecting what the majority that in the last election had voted. And that's what I see as being democracy, reflecting in relation to what the population out there who decided to vote, the nearly 30% of the people, that they really wanted to have smaller numbers in relation to the councillors. And that is democracy.
Speaker against.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much. I do share the comments said by my fellow councillors against this motion, and I do ask, what price democracy? I wasn't in the chamber when you decided not to reduce the numbers, so I don't think I can be accused of contributing to that, Councillor. However, what will we save? $28,000? It will be less by the time a new councillor is appointed, so that figure's not correct. And I honestly don't believe that it's going to be a low turnout. And if you look, I feel great privilege to be elected to this place ahead of all those other terrific people who put their hands up. And I'm sure a lot of those people would be delighted to have another go. They would be generating their own people to come in. They would all be trying to get elected. I think we're getting a lot more than 2%, so I don't think that argument holds. And if we had compulsory voting, of course, it wouldn't be an issue because they'd all have to turn up. The other issue is I would really like to see another lady on this council. That would be 50-50. We can't cut the mayor in half. He has to stay as he is. But
Some would like to.
Not me, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
But I would love to see another female on this council. That would really even up the numbers. And I agree with Councillor Kelly. I think that giving someone another 15 months of experience on this council would be a terrific thing. It is a privilege to represent the people of this city. I would also say that how are we going to replace Councillor McGuinness? A lot of us already really put our name down for quite a few things. Who's going to do the terrific work that he's been doing in the time that he's been on this council? We're all going to share the load? We're all going to take on extra? I don't think I can personally, because when I joined this council, I set out to decide that I was going to try and do my best, and I've tried to do that, and I've tried to nominate for as many things as I could fit in, but I can't do it anymore. So I think we need to not vote for these two recommendations, and then if that doesn't succeed, we go for option 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, Speaker 4. Okay, I'll ask for another speaker against. Councillor Hayward to close, thank you. Sorry. Can I have someone move we resume standing orders? Councillor Kelly, seconder to resume standing orders. Councillor McCleary, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Hayward to close.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Look, just a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, we would not be in this situation if we didn't have Councillor McGuinness having to leave us and go somewhere else. So I think we need to bear that in mind. This is not a decision that's been brought about by people who are trying to cut the numbers of council. This is a response to what is happening now. The other thing is we've heard lots of stories about this is a fantastic opportunity for young people. Absolutely is. Of course, having potentially another council member could be, but maybe we should have 4 more councillors. I mean, at some point that doesn't hold water. You need to consider what the business of council is, what's in front of us, and despite all those things being great ideas to make you feel nice and warm and fuzzy inside, the reality is we're here to make a decision about what the future holds. The point that Councillor Morris makes is very important, and that is that with such a small turnout, historically, we might say, well, we're all excited and we're all going to leave here tonight and say, yes, we'll get everybody excited to come and to participate, but the reality is the previous data tells us that very few people do participate. So it's not like for like. So we all went through a process, a rigorous process of being elected, subject to around 30% of the population of the voting population of Bunbury making a decision to place us into this chair. I don't believe that same rigour will be in place, and I think that potentially weakens the value of how that rolls out. So I actually think it's not just a case of people trying to reduce numbers and that we should be resisting that. We're making a specific decision about a specific councillor that's leaving that we would not be making if he wasn't leaving. We'd be enjoying having Joel here for the next 14 months. And I concur with what others have said in the chamber, and I think Joel's made a terrific contribution over the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, and so I'd urge you to support the.
Oh, that was the end of the speech. Sorry.
Support the motion and to make a decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. I apologise. Councillors, this requires an absolute majority, so 7 must support it. All in favour, please indicate. Number one first. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried by an absolute majority. Yeah, those 4 were Councillors Brown, Miguel, myself, Morris, Cook, Hayward and Warnock. Those against were Councillors Kelly, Smith, McGuinness, Steck, McCleary and Steele. Number 2 doesn't require an absolute majority. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's lost. Those against? Easier. Steele, McCleary, Steck, Miguel, Brown, McGuinness, Kelly, Smith. The rest were 4. Thank you, councillors. I declare this meeting closed at 6:29 p.m. Thanks, officers. Thank you, members of the public.